Hey everybody, I hope you all are doing well and welcome back to Michael's Matters. And we are hitting the middle of December and man, does it feel like this year has flown by. Also, it means that the last inflation report for the year has also come out and actually showing some pretty positive signs for folks who are receiving Social Security benefits. So that could be Social Security Retirement, which of course is the majority of folks on the program, but also Social Security Disability SSDI, Supplemental Security Income SSI, as well as spousal benefits and survivor benefits, and really all the other different iterations of the Social Security program. So today we are going to be talking about why the newest inflation numbers are good news for folks on Social Security and how much Social Security benefits could be, how much they should be, how much they would be if they used an alternate and arguably more accurate measurement specifically geared towards American seniors. Now, before we get to the video, if you like these videos, if you find them interesting, if you find them helpful, or hey, if you at least find them useful, please don't forget to like and subscribe because it really does help the channel to grow. And of course, we are so thankful for that. Thank you. But also because you can get updates when our newest and most informative videos become available. All right, now, let's get down to the video. So let's first talk about the general numbers, which are the newest numbers that have just come out from the BLS, or the Bureau of Labor Statistics, who are the good folks at the government who keep track of these things. And these inflation numbers show that the overall inflation is creeping down a little bit. So it's not a big decrease, but the numbers are starting to head down. In fact, the month of November, the general inflation rate for the CPIU, that's the general inflation number, it dropped from 3.2% in October to 3.1% in November. Now, like I said, that's not a huge number of a drop, but it is a step in the right direction. It also means good things for those folks who are on Social Security benefits because the cost of everything that is inflating slower than the rate that Social Security benefits are going up. But we'll get to that here in a second. Now, the reason for the decrease is primarily because energy, things like gasoline and fuel oil, dropped by 2.3%. But a lot of that was offset by an increase in shelter, which went up by 0.4%. Now, 0.4% is obviously lower than 2.3%, but shelter is way more expensive than gas. And so even though it's a smaller increase in percentage, it's still a pretty big increase in dollars wise, especially in comparison to how much you spend on oil. So they do sort of offset each other, but overall inflation is going down, and that is good to see, even if it is just a little bit. Now let's talk about what the inflation report means specifically for folks on Social Security in an apples to apples way, because although the CPIU is good, it is the general inflation numbers and gives us a great idea of how the overall economy is doing. It doesn't really directly compare up with Social Security benefits, as they are tied to an alternate metric called the CPIW, or the Consumer Price Index for Urban Wage Earners. And what this basically is a list of the costs that the average urban wage earner has and what they spend throughout the year, and it just tracks those goods from 1 month to the next over a 12-month period. So, for example, comparing November 2022 costs for those same goods to November 2023 costs for those same goods. And the difference in those prices is the percentage of the rate of inflation. And that is also how Social Security benefits are also adjusted yearly through their cost of living adjustment, or the COLA, which is through the CPIW measurement. So with all that being said, the rate of inflation for the CPIW for November fell from 3.1% to a flat 3.0%. So that too is a good sign for folks on Social Security benefits because it means that inflation continues at this rate. It'll be well below that 3.2% COLA increase that folks got on Social Security, or I guess will start getting as of January. So when we look at what that means by numbers, as of November, the average Social Security retirement benefits in the United States across the country was at $1,844 a month. That also means that starting in January, the average Social Security recipient will get an increase of $59 in their benefits starting January, which would put the average monthly benefit at $1,903 a month. So that is that 3.2% COLA increase. But when we compare that to the 3.0%, that CPIW inflation rate from November, if the COLA was calculated based on using that, instead of getting a $59 increase, beneficiaries would only have gotten a $55 increase in that cost of living adjustment. But since the COLA doesn't adjust monthly, so they don't take it every single month, they only take it during a specific sample period, which was at 3.2% during this year, it means that every month inflation stays under that 3.2%, retirees and and folks on Social Security will essentially have more purchasing power because the cost of everything is inflating slower than their COLA benefits inflated. Now, it's not a lot if we look at the real numbers on it. In this specific example, the difference of $59 to $55, or basically $4 a difference a month, but multiplied over years, that is $48. And if inflation continues to drop down, which it likely will do because of an election year, and there's nothing that gets incumbent presidents booted out faster than a bad economy, so they're going to do everything they can to keep inflation going down. It means that seniors are going to have more purchasing power or more ability to buy more stuff. So it's not life-changing. Again, that's not a life-changing amount, but it is still good. And, I would say it's kind of like if you got an extra 10 minutes on your lifespan. I mean, it's not going to change the way you look at the world, but, nobody's going to turn it down, and it's ultimately better than what it was before. Now, last up for today, to tie it all together, let's talk about one of my favorite inflation measurements, if you can have an inflation measurement that's a favorite, which is not used to calculate the Social Security COLA, but should be. And there are really various laws and legislations that are in Congress, that will be put into Congress, that should be put into Congress, that are encouraging the usage of this measurement, but it has not gone through, so it's not used yet, which is the CPIW, or the Consumer Price Index for the elderly. Now, the reason it is such an important measurement and why there are so many people who are for it and why there are so many people who are against it is because it would actually put more money, and a lot more money over time, into the pockets of Social Security beneficiaries. Now, the CPIE, what it does is it adjusts for one of the biggest problems with the CPIU and the CPIW, which is adjust to accurately weight the costs that seniors have, which are higher for particular things like healthcare and transportation, which those two things specifically tend to experience higher inflation than in the general public, and thus they are more expensive specifically for seniors. These increased costs are usually missed when they calculate the COLA because it's tied to something like the CPIW, and the CPIW is the Consumer Price Index for the urban wage worker. And the simple fact is that most seniors are not the same as the average wage earner who lives in an urban setting. They have different costs for older Americans. So the additional costs that seniors experience, well, they don't get compensated for. It is the reason why the COLA more often than not ever keeps up with seniors' budgets. So all that being said, when we look at the actual cost and the levels of inflation that our senior population is feeling in the United States, this metric, the CPIE, shows that the inflation seniors felt in November is way higher than that 3.1% for general inflation, the CPIU, or that 3.0% urban wage workers, CPIW, but rather it shows that for their baskets of goods, their inflation went up by 3.6%. That's a lot more. So when we look at what that means, if the COLA was calculated off the CPIE and not the CPIW, and we look at what those real costs are, seniors, instead of getting a $59 increase on their average Social Security check as of January, they would instead get a $66 increase in benefits, which would bring that monthly benefit up to $1,911, again, on average a month, or an additional $7 or $84 a year to their budget. So that's a decent amount of money. I mean, granted, $7 isn't that much monthly, but yearly, $84, that's really something. And also keep in mind that the COLA every single year is based off of a percentage of the previous year's benefits. So every year that you miss $1 here, $1 there, that percentage gets rolled together, and year over year and decade over decade, that results in a substantially different amount of lifetime benefits, like a lot. So overall, thinking about inflation and the COLA, I mean, they obviously go hand in hand. Of course, there's always the debate about whether it is better to have higher inflation and get more COLA increases on somebody's Social Security benefits, or have lower inflation and get lower or potentially zero COLA increases. But one thing is for sure is that the current measurement that is being used, the CPIW, just doesn't do the trick. It not only leaves out some of the goods that have the most inflation on them that seniors buy on a yearly basis, it also results in the undercut of seniors' ability to live out their golden years with independence and dignity. So with all that, when the structural issue is going on, it still is good to see inflation going down in what could be kind of the best possible situation for Social Security beneficiaries, where inflation spiked during the test period that gave them a higher COLA, 3.2%, but then drops down for the rest of the year, leaving them with a higher than anticipated increased purchasing power, which is what things look like they are at least heading towards. We'll have to see a couple more months, and ultimately that would be good. All right, so that's it for today's Michael's Matters, and I really hope that you found it interesting, you found it helpful, or you at least found it useful. And if you did, please don't forget to like and subscribe, because it does really help the channel to grow, and we are growing, and we are so thankful for that. Thank you. But also because you can get updates when our newest and most informative videos become available. So with that, I'm Michael, hoping that you take care of yourself, take care of others, and have a happy, healthy